I don't know if it'll really articulate itself as a question, but I just feel to kind of like expose something in the shrine, which came about today in our practice. Um, there's this stone that I often find inside myself in these practices. Like there's even like a sadness around it, that it's feeling, and I don't know if this is the whole stone, but it's at least a part of the story of the stone, which is that, yes, that it's waiting for another to allow it to expand, to become more this other thinks it is.
That's such a sweet
So maybe.
story. You should write a children's book about that. It's just touching because it's such a beautiful image for that feeling of being unseen and isolated and a fragment, a stone. And yet, yeah, it would be a lovely children's story to write, and something magical would happen to the stone. In the yoga, that kind of that that so what happened in the yoga probably is you got in touch with a me feeling, and then it felt like a stone, and then you kind of followed that, and then you felt how that stone, then you were back more in the story, in the story of Artemis, and so that the image fleshed out, and there was the stone that needed to be seen or melted by something coming from outside. So in the yoga, all of that is welcome. You don't have to resolve it. You don't have to ask yourself, is it true? Does the stone need this kind of story, this drama of the stone that needs the other? It's such a beautiful image for for separation. But in this exploration, we know that ultimately, if you can welcome this whole story without just taking your position as the stone, you take your position as a stone, but you're also the longing to be met. You're also that other that doesn't show up. You're also you're everything that is being perceived at that moment. And then you, at some point, you just let it go. You don't cling to that story. After all, it is just a story. But so you let it blossom, but you don't, you somehow that the key to that story is in allowing it, allowing the feeling of being a stone, allowing especially the longing for that stone to be seen or met. That's a big one. That's the me feeling. That's the me a fragment feeling. But come back to the raw, let go of that story and stay with that feeling, and let that feeling blossom in her. I want to say in this case her, meaning in the infinite mother. She sees everything. So that stone is in fact not isolated waiting for the other. That stone is enshrined in the mother, fully seen. That feeling of not being seen, or I don't know if that's the right description for the feeling of the stone, but that feeling of being a stone, of sadness, it's surrounded with welcoming. So I love your story, and at the same time we have to we have to be careful not to fall in love with our stories, because then we take residence in it, and we're kind of, our stories become our prison. Our stories should just be, they should be used and then let go of. So you're not a stone, but there is a
Yeah.
stone-like feeling that arises, and it's familiar and it's old, and you could write a lot about it, and you could tell us a lot about it. We don't have time, but, and there's nothing wrong with that, to really let 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 that stone speak, long, shout, whatever the stone needs to do. But at some point, let the whole thing go, surrender the whole thing, and feel yourself as the field, if possible. Sometimes you can't feel yourself as the field, as the openness, but if you can't feel
Yeah.
yourself as the field, be open to feeling yourself as the field.
Mhm. Yeah, it was the first time that I'd encountered it's becoming easier and easier to meet things like this
That's good.
and not have a story of, oh, I
Yeah,
need to do something, I
yeah,
need to
yeah,
dissolve.
yeah,
So, but it was
yeah.
the first time
Sorry,
that
go ahead.
it's the first time that it had said, well, we can't dissolve until this other person does something, till this
Yeah.
other person. And so then there was like, oh, do I need, I don't need to do anything, but does somebody else need to do something for this to dissolve? But
No,
it's true, it's all.
but it's part of your story, and in the beauty of the yoga is you get to see, you see the articulation of suffering. Our suffering is a story, and it articulates itself. There's me, the stone, and then there's my loneliness, and then there's the other out there, which is just an idea or a belief, but it's based on an experience that probably you had as a child or something. But it doesn't it's not that it doesn't matter. It matters a lot what happened in your childhood. But in the meditation, you just kind of welcome. It's like you're pulling something out of the ocean. You know how
Mhm.
sometimes you pull a seaweed and then there's more and there's more. So now with the yoga, you're able to pull a feeling of separation, a stone, and then you pull more. Oh, but the stone needs another in order to melt. And then if you would keep pulling, and there would be a whole story, and you just let it unfold, this
Mhm.
whole spectacle of your suffering. In this case, it's a story. But I would suggest to then come back to the very immediate raw feeling. Did you hear me, Artemis? Are you with me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But I
Mhm.
just note that you said for the first time. So I think it was like a little milestone for you. You could see something.
Mhm.
But no, there is no other out there that can melt the stone.
Yeah.
But there is another in here. In
Mhm.
other words, the other is the beloved. But the beloved is
Mhm.
not out there. The beloved is right here,
Mhm.
invisible and easy to say, but you have to discover that. We all have to discover that. And we forget it and we remember it, and etc. etc. Anyway, I hope you write the story about a stone. In my image, it's a black stone. It's very beautiful.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Artemis. Thank you for speaking up.